Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable, and it is a great honor to introduce this prestigious panel that's coming up. It includes Bob Grill, who is with CARFAX, Rich Mahon from Toyota South Atlanta, and David Kain from Kain Automotive, all superstars in our industry. And our panel is titled Partnering with Sales to Drive Success. Let me start by welcoming Bob to the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
How are you? Glad to be here. We appreciate the invite, and we're looking forward to this, actually. Very exciting.
Bob, I got to tell you, this topic that you and Rich and David have put together is long overdue. We've talked about the necessity of sales working with service and parts and fixed operations, and Bob, it's probably never been more timely than today.
No, exactly right. As the event of the last 2.5 years have come to fruition, a lot of dealers have had to adjust. A lot of dealers have had to find different ways to be successful. And certainly the dealers that have found a way to do what hasn't always been the best, right? It hasn't always been the best situation between sales and service in a car dealer. The ones that have managed to find a way to partner up absolutely find more success than they do trying to get it done by themselves.
I love it. Well, Rich and David, I'm gonna take some notes because I can't wait to hear what you've got to share with us. And Bob, I'm gonna step out of the way and I'm gonna let you get things rolling.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you very much, Ted. Gentlemen, nice to meet
Hey,
you guys. Appreciate you doing this panel. I couldn't ask for two better people to do this panel with for our audience. Just so you know, David Kain and Kain Automotive are a expert panel on phone, inbound, e-leads, internet, everything to do with getting them to the dealership, right, David? How to handle them and get them excited and get into the store. And of course, Rich Mahon is the GM and managing partner for Toyota South Atlanta, who has a very successful service and sales team. So I asked these gentlemen to be on the panel. So, gentlemen, thank you for joining. Looking forward to this few minutes here to talk to the dealers, which have reached out to us in droves, asking for different things to do. What can we do? Things that don't necessarily cost a lot of money, right? Anyone can throw money at a problem, but there's lots that a dealer can do without spending money, right? Just taking a look inside and doing a few little things. So, Rich, I'm just gonna let you take over for a few minutes. I know the last 2 years, just like all the other dealers, you had to find ways to become more successful and maximize your profitability in an ever-changing environment. So, would you just get us going with a little bit of with what you've been going through for the last couple of years?
Yeah, so I think I've experienced with what most dealers have gone through since the start of the pandemic. It started with not really knowing what that social interaction would be, to staffing issues, to inventory issues. Now we have staffing and inventory issues, and you're right. And someone told me, as margins increased on the variable side, I think a lot of attention and focus for dealers went there because that's where it was easy money, right?
Yeah.
And what I was told was a lot of bad decisions are made during good times.
Well,
So we were seeing increased margins and taking our eye off the prize, and the prize is still your fixed operations.
Yeah.
And the other thing I saw was a lot of dealers and general managers reaching out saying, "Hey, I equity mine in the service department, but it's not working." Well, guess why it's not working? You don't have new cars to put them in.
Right.
So that
Right.
easy flip was kind of diluted a little bit there. The other thing was with the social interaction, there were a lot of clients that I found in the service department that didn't want to be interrupted if they chose to stay here on property to talk with a equity mining department or trade upgrade specialist, however you want to label that position. And one of the things we did, and we were kind of forced to make this decision, was we completely scrapped our equity mining department and started over. And my methodology was real simple. It was you're using the KISS method, and we broke it down and we unmanned the department. And I know some people and skeptics have said, "What are you thinking?" And what we did was we went to a hang tag, a thank you hang tag, which was our RO bib in the window. And we were using your trade appraisal tool with a QR code. And I did it out of necessity in the beginning because I didn't have anybody to man the department. But what I found was people on their own right and own curiosity were starting to scan that QR code because they were able to get an instant cash offer. And out of curiosity, they want to know what their car was worth.
Yeah.
And through that, our equity mining came back to life.
Yeah.
We were converting these service customers back into not always a new car, but a lot of times one of our certified pre-owned vehicles. Because listen, if they're trading an 8-year-old vehicle, well, the 7-year upgrade is still a really good deal and acquisition for them.
That's
right?
Exactly right.
And this unmanned position was absolutely free to the dealer. It didn't cost me anything.
That's the best part.
And the customers liked it because they were doing it on their terms. You know, I think so many times the dealers have this fear of loss, so they have to be in control of every micro moment. But sometimes if you just let loose and let go of that fear of loss, you wind up gaining so much more. So we found some incredible success on this program over the last 18 months. And we have a lot of people that are in my professional circle now applying the tactic to their stores and seeing similar successes. So that's kind of the biggest move that I've seen where I was forced to make. The other thing is, you know, during the last 2 years, we really have to take a look at the shift in our business model.
Yeah.
So when we're looking at acquisitions for used cars, you just don't have the auction lane. You just don't have your service lane. You have to harvest and touch all of these different outlets where you can put your hands on these used cars. You have to put a lot more thought into it. You have to make sure that used car has a story to tell when it hits your lot that makes it special, because that's what's ultimately going to drive your traffic and make it easier to convert. So that's where I'm at right now.
You know, you had shared that story with the hang tag, and I know you've had a great deal of success for that, and we wanted to certainly put that out there to the listening audience, because again, trying to come up with creative ways that are functional and easy to install and don't cost a lot of money. You know, that's the golden ticket these days, right? Tomorrow's always a new challenge for us, it seems, lately. And David, I know you've been doing a lot of work and working with a lot of dealers about how do you interact with those customers, right? How do you communicate with those customers, whether it be sales or service? And even that's changed in the last 2 or 2.5 years, right? People are getting a little worn out at this point.
Yeah.
So, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to say about changes that have taken place in the last 2 years, because the old BDC isn't the old BDC today. The old call center isn't the old call center today, right? There's different techniques that have come around in the last 2 years. Would you share some of that with us?
Sure. And boy, I think Rich really hit on the head with that golden nugget. And certainly when you look at BDCs, one of the challenges for them is how do you handle the cost of that? So in Rich's situation, part of that strategy is sometimes you just take the human element out of that. However, humans do sell cars, humans do work towards acquisition of vehicles, and ultimately, in any situation, it comes down to that human contact once they fill out the form. And one of the things that we've learned is, particularly during the pandemic, is consumers really desire interaction, meaningful interaction. People ask me every once in a while, they'll say, when's the best time to call a customer? And it's when they're expecting the call. When's the best time to email or text? And what happens oftentimes is we still go back to almost like when you and I started when we were young kids in the car business, Bob. They hand you the phone book and say, call people.
Yeah.
Nowadays, with technology the way it is, we're able to track that consumer's behavior, as Rich is doing with his strategy with the QR code and affixing a value to the vehicle, so that it just cues up the human to have that interaction. So one of the first things that we try to do is to leverage the technology and make sure that if we've got a history with the customer, that we acknowledge that. So one of the first things that we want to do is to go in and see, have they bought vehicles from us before? Are they in for service for the first, fifth, or 10th time? And that affords us an opportunity where we can welcome them back.
Yeah.
And if their first time, as the technology indicates, it's first time they're in the door, we need to recognize that and say, wow, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity. It looks like this could be the first time that we've had an opportunity to work with you, and we're really looking forward to it. So I have often heard that ATM machines communicate more personally than some BDC representatives.
Yeah.
So you stick your card in the machine that says, "Welcome back, Rich. Thanks
Yeah.
for doing business with us." And it's that simple. Is when we can open up the interaction, we can talk to them about things that are important to them, and most of all, find out why they are in the market for whatever they want to do, whether it's trading in a vehicle, whether they want to just sell a vehicle outright, whether they want to come in for service. Amazon Advertising released an interesting study about a year ago, and they said 72% of people in the market are going through a life-changing experience. And I think that's probably true today as it has been forever. Whether it's a marriage like what you might have gone through recently with your daughter, Bob, or certainly graduations, new homes, new children, retirement, all of those variables cause people to do things. And when we can communicate at that level and join their journey, it just really humanizes us and makes us more attractive as humans and as businesses.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because that, I had never heard that analogy with a banking machine, but you're exactly right. Right, you're exactly right. One of the things we wanted to make sure and cover some ground on today, when you look at the title of this, driving success through sales, right? I do think that to this day is still something that's overlooked, right? Because the traditional dealer has both departments doing their own thing, driving profitability, maybe even separating them a little bit, right? Trying to drive both economic engines, if you will, for the dealership. But when you look at stats, right? I'm not a real big stats guy. I don't always like going there, but there's some that just scream needing attention, right? And that simply is, if your customer that you sold a vehicle to has been in your service department in the last 12 months, right? They are 74% likely to come back to your dealership and buy their next vehicle. And if they've been loyal since the beginning, this is a Toyota study actually, if they've been loyal since the beginning, bought that car new from you and done all the routine maintenance and everything, on an average of a 42-month contract, it's an 86% return rate, right?
Wow.
There's nothing that strong in the industry anywhere else in the industry for those kind of return rates, right? So it definitely is something where if you manage both parties together, right? The old saying when we got in the business was, there's no such thing as a used car factory, right? You remember those? You got yelled at by your manager. There's no such thing as a used car factory. Sell them the blue one, right? So here's the deal. Today, there is. Today, you can have your own used car factory if you can manage and maintain your service department along with your sales department, getting your new car customers to engage with you. If you look at the averages in the nation, most dealers today are less than 50% conversion from sales to using their service department, right? That leaves over half your own customer base, that if you work together, if you cultivate it the right way, you can get success. Now, this isn't finding strangers out there to get them to your dealership. These are people that bought cars from you, that enjoyed doing your business in most cases with your dealership, right? So being able to create that partnership better than it's ever been in the past, being able to drive these customers back through your service department, which we know is most profitable, even today, it's very profitable. That is the key, right? Because every car that you create now becomes a homegrown inventory. If you've done all the service and maintenance and you can tell that story and it's been well maintained by certified mechanics, that certainly puts you above whatever you could buy outside your dealership. Would you agree with that, Rich?
I would. And the best, the power play there is you have the history. Right. You have a story now to tell the potential buyer, where the car came from. You have factual information. One of the biggest fears of buying a used car is the unknowns, right?
Right.
How was it previously taken care of? What did it actually go through? And when you can sit there and say, this is a one owner, bought here new, serviced here, traded back in here, that's the golden ticket for to make for an easy sale.
Yeah, one of the things the new generation of buyer, right? Depending on who you ask and what part of the country, it's almost 70% now of the buyers are the millennial generation, right? We've reached that milestone. And one of the things they brought to the table when considering buying a used vehicle is future cost, right?
Yes.
It used to be how much is it? What's my down payment? What's my trade worth? What's my payment? Those were the four big ones, right? Today, that's not so much the four big ones, right? They brought to the table, you ask any of your salespeople, what are your customers asking you? It's, hey, what have you done to the vehicle? Am I going to need tires? Am I going to need future costs, right? So again, when you can show that communication, when you can show that you've taken care of the vehicle, you inspected the vehicle, here's what we did, here's what it comes with now for warranty, right? That whole element, when you're under control, when you can show them, hey, we took care of this car. So the best predictor of the future is the past, right? That's why they like things like personally owned vehicles and personal lease vehicles. Have you found that to be true, David? Too, they, the first question is it still available, right? That's
yes, of course.
But are you finding the questions they're asking to be a little different than they used to be in those kinds of situations?
Yeah, they are, and it's interesting that you bring up the future costs because ultimately, if you look at what Consumer Reports has made their whole living on is predicting what the cost of maintenance is going to be and whether that vehicle is going to hold up. And when a consumer comes in and they're loaded with a lot of industry statistics, they've done the data search and they picked maybe 3 or 4 vehicles that they've decided are going to fit what they're looking for. One of the things that we're hearing from them is, besides the cost of the monthly payments, how can I offset that with extended service plans or maintenance plans and elements like that that are true profit centers for the dealership, but better than that, they're true ownership, satisfaction variables. So, one of the things that really struck me when I was a young buyer was how do I protect against any unknown cost? And if you've got a great service department backed up with extended service agreements and things that help offset the future maintenance cost, that makes a big difference. Now, the beauty of that is in a dealership like Rich, when he's able to then advertise that vehicle on his own website or sit there right on the telephone with the BDC or the sales agent talking to the guest and to say, there's another benefit to this particular, but was bought here, serviced here, and we've got all the records, and that will make you feel really good. We recondition it, we put new tires on it, that won't cost you any more in the future for the next couple of years. All of those variables to ownership are really important for us to be able to convey that both in our marketing and in our communications one-on-one.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Hey, Rich, I wanted to ask you real quick too. When you're appraising vehicles, right? When you or your appraisers are looking at those vehicles, do you take that into consideration? Do you bump the value of that vehicle, especially if it's your own vehicle, or how do you recognize that it's your own vehicle?
Absolutely. The appraisal now has really changed. There's a lot more work that goes into it than it was a few years ago. And let me go back. Because like you said, the past is a predictor of the future, right?
Yeah.
Well, you have a customer coming in the door. It's a trade that's never seen your service department, all that. As a used car manager, as a general manager, I'm questioning, why is he here at my doorstep wanting to trade his Honda or his Nissan or whatever the make and model may be? Is there something behind, hidden under the covers? So we take a lot more steps now using tools to scan to make sure codes weren't reset and so forth. So that all goes in. So now, Bob, to your question, we have Mr. and Mrs. Jones who we know have bought 2 or 3 vehicles from us. We see the vehicle constantly in service, and it shows up the doorsteps. We're almost put at ease.
Right.
I'm willing to pay more because I know my reconditioning costs will most likely be less than my average reconditioning costs on the other ones because it was always maintained here.
That makes sense.
Makes the strategy, the exit strategy for that vehicle a lot simpler.
Question for you. Does that roll into when they do buy another vehicle, you show them, well, you've serviced this here, you've maintained this here, it's worth more money because of that? Does that keeps the system rolling, right? That encourages them to go back through and use your service department and continue to use your service department. Would you agree with that?
It absolutely does. And we use, I'm not here to promote, but the CARFAX for Life, we make sure that they're signed on for that. So they're getting notifications. We have the app on the phone,
Right.
and it does add value, and customers are seeing that. They know they're going to get top dollar. And guess what? They're also a little more ambitious to ask for even more money. And their reasoning for demanding more money
Yeah.
is because they did maintain it here at the dealership.
Well, they only ask
And
because they plan on buying.
okay paying it.
Right. Yeah. They only ask because they plan on buying. That's always a good sign, right?
Yeah.
Hey, David, I know we're pushing up a little bit on our time, but I wanted to reach out to you one more time. There's been a lot of effort put forth to try and do business online, 100% online, and you and I both know the personal element that needs to be put in there. And at the height of COVID, the total online purchases was only at about 15%, with the highest scare tactic out there, right? That people would be afraid of. But at the end of the day, Cox has said that the first time the dealer actually gets to interact with the customer, over 54% of the time is at the front door, right? Hyundai just came out with a study that said 95% of transactions still happen at the dealership. So how does that dealership, when they're communicating with the customer, how do you get that to a comfort level where the customer will come to the dealership and visit you, right? We know that if they've been in your service a little bit regular, they're more comfortable coming. That's why they like doing business with you. But you don't want to alienate your best customer by every time they come to go to service, you're asking them to buy a new car, right? You don't want to taint the best relationship you have. So how do you teach that? What do you tell the people to be careful of, or maybe emphasize this but not so much that? Or are there little techniques you can share with our audience today?
Yeah, and I'm so glad that Rich opened up with his technique, because I think that's really, really powerful. And we've literally got telephone calls recorded where the guest says to the agent, "I don't want to bring my car in because every time I do, you will ask me if I want to trade it or sell it. So
Yeah.
I don't want to do it." So truly, a more passive approach is appropriate. One of the things, going back to what I started with at the beginning, is when the guest really sees them in the frame that it is time to trade. And I think marketing in a softer way, that now's a really good time. Your vehicle's never been worth more. If you brought your vehicle in for service, it makes all the difference. And Bob, you and I've talked about the Signer organization out in Salt Lake City that created this category called the Signer Original. And what they really said was, and Rich, I would encourage you to adopt this strategy. They said at delivery, and it has to organically start there, when you bring your vehicle in for service and maintenance, that's going to afford you to keep really good records, and it will become an original of our dealership, affording us an opportunity to give you a better value, and we'll know it better, and it affords them to then market. So if you walked out on the dealership lot, you would have the certified pre-owned, you would also have the regular used vehicles, and then you'd have a Signer Original. And it also gave the value to the appointment setters in the service department or sales department to say, "Oh, wow, this is really going to enhance the value of your vehicle." So when we turn it not into here's the cost of maintaining it, into here's a value of investing in your vehicle, and it's going to come back to you multifold at our dealership, that makes a big difference to the guest.
That is.
I'll tell you what, David, that's a great viewpoint for customer retention and
Absolutely. That's cool. There's something, Rich. You got a nugget. You gave us a couple and you got one back. That's fair, right?
For sure.
I definitely appreciate y'all's time today. This is a topic that we could keep talking for 4 or 5 hours on, right? There's so much out there. And as you travel the country, as David and I do, you see lots of stuff out there, some of it crazy, some of it working, some of it not. So thank you for giving us your expertise today, gentlemen. It's certainly been worthwhile being able to pick up some new things. Ted, did you like that one? Did you pick up something?
I have been taking nothing but notes, Bob. And I tell you, Rich and David, that last one, I love the material. That was fantastic. And you know what it comes back to, Bob? CARFAX has long been known as a transparent tool. Yeah. And David, if you remember, some years ago, we started talking about transparency in the sales process, in the F&I process. But Rich, what's happened right now is transparency has arrived in fixed operations. And Rich, what you described, the consumer having that CARFAX app on their phone and being able to access all this, Rich, that's the ultimate in transparency. And it gives the customer, Rich, a lot of confidence as well.
It really does. And if you're going to double down on anything, double down on bridging that sales to service and service to sales relationship, making it harmonious within the store, making sure that no one department's afraid of the other and that they are working all in tandem to keep that customer retained and loyal to you, because that's our future.
You know, it is absolutely true. Being able to let the consumer, Rich, you know, you started us out by saying when they're in control, they're a lot more comfortable and they're a lot more interactive. You know, we at CARFAX, we do have our car care app and our car care system, which is free to the public, right? It keeps all their service records and drives them and communicates directly with, for example, Rich's store or any of the stores. We have 25 million consumers that are on the car care system, and we've never had to advertise it, right? That's all people. You know, it's the old glove box full of receipts that you don't have to keep anymore. We remind them when their oil change is due, when their tire rotations is due. And, you know, we're not a dealer, right? So we're not trying to do it. So we communicate on the dealer's behalf and drive them to the dealers. And that's been something that's really helped. You know, Rich mentioned being able to get their number, you know, being able to get their own number on their own. You know, so many customers today, think about how you work with your home, right? You look at Zillow, even though you have no intention of selling your home. Everyone keeps up to date with that's what that does for them, that car care, so that it sets up a real expectation when they do visit, right? And then I know you gentlemen mentioned CARFAX for life. Again, CARFAX is a consumer product. So being able to communicate on the dealer's behalf and drive that business back to the service in a way the customer feels comfortable with it and they don't feel alienated, they don't feel the pressure. So we appreciate you guys mentioning both of those products. It's certainly something we're proud of.
Bob, CARFAX is trusted throughout the industry by both the consumer and the dealers as well. No doubt about it. Bob, if our audience wants to learn more about CARFAX and, you know, maybe take the next step with some of these tools that you're mentioning and that Rich and David have shared, Bob, how do we find out more?
Well, you can always reach out to your CARFAX reps, you know, and also you can go to carfax.com, find out any information you would like from the products. And you know what? Just ask a CARFAX dealer. That's our best customer right there. That's our best commercial, is the actual CARFAX dealer that gets all the products.
Yeah. Hey, gentlemen, great stuff today. I want to, on behalf of the Fixed Ops community, Rich Mahon, Toyota South Atlanta, I want to thank you so much and welcome you to the event as well. We've heard a lot about your organization, so great to meet you here virtually in person. And David Kain, thank you for so much that you do for our industry. A great reputation, and David, great insights as well. And I took a lot of notes from what both of you gentlemen shared as well.
Thank you, Ted.
It's so awesome to hear from you guys. Thanks for joining our panel.
And Bob Grill, on behalf of the Fixed Ops Roundtable, thank you so much for what you and CARFAX do for our industry.
Always a pleasure. We don't take the partnership lightly, and we're always honored to be a part of it. So thank you very much, Ted.
Everybody, great honor to have with us today the panel here from CARFAX, here today partnering with sales to drive success here at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.